Hi everyone, my name is Natalie, also known as Knitty Natty, and you are here because you're wondering how designers get paid on Ravelry versus Etsy. So maybe you're a consumer and you're wondering, where does my money really go? Or you're kind of curious, like, how much of my pattern money really gets back to the designer? Maybe you are a designer and you're trying to decide where you want to sell your patterns. Either way, I am here to answer all of those questions in this video today. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a setup and disclaimer. One, I am going to be looking down a lot because I have my computer here in front of me. I have a lot of notes and a lot of tabs pulled up because I want to be the most informed when I am giving you this information. I have also linked several things below. I have linked Ravelry's policies for their fees, Etsy's policies for their fees and payment policy, and also PayPal's fee policy. So all of those things are right down below in the description box for you to take a look at. I don't want you to just take my word for this. I have looked at it and studied the policies as much as I can, but just a disclaimer that I can only know exactly what is happening for me as a pattern seller and as a consumer. I'm going to try to be as objective as possible. Like I said, I studied these policies and looked at them as close as I could. But again, I can only know what is happening to me. So I am going to give you a really good overview and also go run through some scenarios like when you buy a pattern, what happens? And I'm also going to give you some pros and cons on being a consumer on Ravelry versus being a consumer on Etsy. And I also have some tips for you if you are looking to help support your favorite pattern designer. There's one other thing that's linked below, this little information sheet here. In just a minute, I'm going to be breaking down some math for you. It can get a little bit confusing. So if you would like, you can go to the link below. There is a Google Doc, a Google document that has that chart on there that breaks down a Ravelry sale versus an Etsy sale, so you can see it all nice and in front of you. Before I even start that, I want to tell you that I am a user of both Etsy and Ravelry. I started selling my designs on Ravelry first, and in the last month I've started selling on Etsy. So I am definitely more informed on Ravelry's policies than I am with Etsy's policies, but I have studied them a lot in order to prepare for this. This video is mainly going to be geared towards consumers of patterns, but if you are interested in more of the selling side of things, just let me know in the comments of this video or send me a message, and I can maybe gather up some of your questions and put together another video that's based more towards sellers. Okay, let's get down to the math. I'm going to explain the policies for Ravelry and Etsy just real quick talking to you, and then I'm going to break it down on paper. Okay, so this fee thing on both Ravelry and Etsy is a little convoluted and a little tricky. So in no way am I going to be able to cover every single scenario. What I'm going to do is take you through a single pattern transaction. I'm going to use the sample of $6 because most of my patterns are listed for $6. And I'm going to treat that one pattern like it's the only thing that I have sold, and all of the fees will come off of that $6. So you can really see like what happens when you pay, you swipe your card or enter it online for $6, where does that money really go? So let's talk policies first. Ravelry, I'm going to start with because they have the simplest policy. Again, you can look at the link while I'm talking about that if you want, but I'm going to break it down really quickly. When you decide to list a pattern on Ravelry, it is absolutely free for the designer. You can just create your pattern and post it on there at no cost to you. When you do sell a pattern, you are subject to a percentage fee. And that fee is 3.5% of that single sale. Now, there are some parameters around that. If you sell under $30, you are not going to have any fees at all, and that's within a month. And if you sell between $30 and $1,500, you're going to be paying that 3.5% fee. Once you've reached $1,500 in pattern sales in a month, which good for you, that's a really awesome achievement, there is no longer that 3.5 fee. Rather, you will just have to pay a 3% fee on the EU, I think European Union sales. So for my example today, we're going to just create a scenario where you're between $30 and $1,500. You're making somewhere in between that in a month, so you would, of course, incur that 3.5% fee. Now, on Ravelry, the only way that I can find for you to receive your payment is through PayPal. So those are all the Ravelry fees, but then you move over to the PayPal fees. And again, I'm referring to this little chart that I made if you want to go look at it in the Google Doc. After you have the 3.5% fee on your pattern, you then move over to PayPal, where each transaction is charged a flat rate and a percentage of your sale. So the flat rate is 30 cents in the US. Of course, it's different depending on where you are or where your buyer is from. And a 2.9% fee from the total of the sale. Okay, that's really a lot. So let's move over to actually seeing it on paper, and then we'll come back and we'll look at Etsy. All right, let's run through some math. So if you're not a math person, don't worry, I'm gonna be breaking this down for you in an example, but also you can refer to this sheet that is linked below in the Google Doc to see all these numbers laid out for you in a nice, pretty table. So for this example on Ravelry, I am going to be listing a $6 pattern, which is what most of my patterns cost now. So I'm going to be listing this in the United States, which is important because fees are different in different countries. So my $6 pattern, I'm listing it on Ravelry, and Ravelry is going to charge me $0 in order to list it. So I am going to be losing 0 of my $6, which means I still have $6 remaining. Now, once I've actually made the sale, Ravelry charges a 3.5% fee. That's if you're between $30 and $1,500 in sales for the month. So 3.5% of $6, I'm going to be paying Ravelry 21 cents because they help me sell my pattern. And so now I am down to $5.79. So that's where it ends with Ravelry, but now I need to receive my money as a designer, and this is going to kick over to PayPal. PayPal is the only way that I know of to receive Ravelry payments right now. So PayPal has two fees. It has a flat fee per transaction of 30 cents. So 30 cents is going to go to PayPal for giving me my money. And so now I am at $5.49. And then PayPal also has a percentage fee, which is 2.9%. And 2.9% of $6 is 17 cents. And so now I am at $5.32 of my original $6 sale. This is what the designer is going to receive in their pocket for each $6 sale. So remember I said that Ravelry was the simple way. You are free to list, you have 3.5% from Ravelry, and then on PayPal you have a flat rate and a percentage rate. That's a simple one. Let's move over now to Etsy. So Etsy, when you first decide you're going to design this pattern and post it onto Etsy, you are going to incur a 20-cent listing fee. Now, until today, when I was really diving into it, I thought that the listing was just you putting up that item, and you could put as many, up to 100 of those, or actually, I think I just chose 100. I said, well, I have 100 of these patterns because it's a digital file. I thought that I only had to pay 20 cents for putting up those 100 items, but I was wrong. You actually have to pay 20 cents for each listing. So every time you sell one of your patterns, it relists on Etsy and you pay another 20 cents. So basically 20 cents from what you're paying the designer is already coming out just to list their pattern. Okay, so you have a 20-cent listing fee. Etsy's transaction fee is 5% of the total cost of what you're selling. And we're not talking about shipping anything here. This is digital files only, so we're not going to get into the cost of shipping or anything. Now, Etsy does give you the payments through them. They actually hold your money until you decide. You can choose daily, weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly to receive your funds, and it goes straight into a bank account. So they're able to, be a little bit different than PayPal here because they are the ones holding your money and then transferring it to you. Of course, there are some fees from that. There's a flat rate fee of 25 cents in the US per sale, and a 3% of your total sale per sale. Okay, again, that's a lot. So let's go back to our board and let's look at what that actually looks like for a $6 pattern. All right, so now let's talk about Etsy. Again, I'm gonna have that $6 pattern that I am listing on Etsy. So I'm a new designer. I've just put up my first pattern, and right away, Etsy is going to charge a listing fee of 20 cents. So 20 cents right away, whether you sell or not, is going to go to Etsy. So right away, you are at $5.80 as the designer. Once you actually make a sale, Etsy charges 5% of your total sale. So 5% of $6 is going to be 30 cents that I am paying to Etsy to use their website to sell my patterns. So now I am down to $5.50. But of course now as a designer I need to receive my money, and again that's going to come through Etsy, but it's going to come with two different rates. The first is a flat payment of 25 cents. So 25 cents to receive my money into my bank account from Etsy, and I'm down to $5.25. And then they also have a 3% payment fee of the $6, which is 18 cents. And so I am at $5.07 of that original $6 pattern. That is the money that is going to go into the pocket of the designer. So for $6 pattern sales, if I'm looking at them side by side on Etsy versus Ravelry, you can see I am looking at a 25-cent difference here in what is going into the pocket of the designer. All right, so after all that math, I feel like we really just need a summary here. So kind of in conclusion with the totally concrete financial part, you can make, as a designer, or you're giving the designer a tad bit more money on Ravelry versus Etsy. They both have similar fees attached to them, but the fees are a little different. Ravelry does not hold on to the designer's money. It immediately gets transferred to PayPal and into the designer's PayPal account. It depends on how you're buying. If you're buying a single pattern, it's still only going to incur those percentage fees. So we'll talk about that a little more at the end when I give you some tips on how you can help support your favorite designer. So Ravelry's initial fees are lower than Etsy. Ravelry just takes 3.5% and Etsy takes 5%. Now these are a little different too. Ravelry is taking 3.5% monthly, and they're only taking it if you're between $30 and $1,500. It's not coming out of every single pattern sale, but it ends up being about the same. Etsy is taking 5% of every single sale, no matter what. And we'll talk about sort of a con that comes with that is different than you might think actually. Now, when it comes to the designer actually receiving the money after our hosts, Ravelry and Etsy, have been paid, PayPal's fee is a little bit higher than Etsy's payment fee. Remember, Etsy is holding on to your money, so they're able to control a little bit more of that actually payments received part. Whereas Ravelry gets their money at the end of the month and your money goes immediately to PayPal where it incurs PayPal fees. So the PayPal flat fee is a little higher. It's 30 cents versus Etsy's 25 cents. And then the percentage fee is really comparable. PayPal's is 2.9% and Etsy's is 3%. So those are almost exactly the same. So of course, all of that really depends on where you are when you purchase the pattern, who you're purchasing a pattern from, what country they're in. There are so many variables there, but I tried to pick something that would be as simple as possible. So let's move on to some pros and cons of the features of both of these sites for you as a pattern consumer. Okay, there are just so many different nuances to consumer features on Ravelry and Etsy, but I'm just going to stick to what is actually relevant to you as a purchaser of patterns. Again, if you are interested in the pros versus cons of Ravelry and Etsy as a designer, let me know. I can potentially create another video just on those things. And again, I am a seller on both websites, and there are reasons that I am a seller on both. So let's go through some of those consumer pros and cons. So for both Ravelry and Etsy, definite pro is that you can get your pattern right away as an instant download. You also get a copy to your email inbox, provided you have signed up with one, and you get a copy of the pattern in your, like on the site. Ravelry I find a little bit more user-friendly when it comes to this, because it looks like a library and you can see icons of all of your patterns. Etsy is a little different. You have to go into your previous purchases and to the date that you bought it, but there is a spot that says download on there. You are also able to favorite items, patterns on both sites, and also to favorite shops, which is really, really important in supporting your favorite designer. And then you can also shop sales and with coupons on both Ravelry versus Etsy. So these are pros for both of those site hosts. Now, there are, of course, cons to both of these. Both Ravelry and Etsy have had some controversy around policies that they have created in the past. We're not going to get into those in this video, but as a consumer, you completely have the right to choose where you put your money. So that is totally up to you to decide what you feel comfortable with, where you would like to put your money in Ravelry versus Etsy, or maybe neither one is right for you. I'm just hoping that in doing this video, you will have a better picture of where that money actually goes once you decide to place it there. Okay, so now we're gonna do a few Ravelry pros versus Etsy cons. And I am not doing this to say that Etsy is not a good website. Ravelry is designed exclusively for pattern sales, and that means they have a lot of features out there that are really good for pattern designers and really good for pattern consumers. So I just want to highlight some of those things that you can do on Ravelry that you cannot do on Etsy, if that weighs into your decision of where to purchase a pattern. So on Ravelry, designers can send you updates, and it will go right into your Ravelry inbox and your email and your library, and you can update the pattern. On Etsy, you cannot do this. You would have to, I guess, collect emails from people and email them individually. Again, it's not a pattern selling website. It was started to sell physical items, so it's a pro versus con kind of thing. In the same vein, on Ravelry, you can sell free patterns. So if you wanted to make your pattern free just for a little while to promote it, or if you are a designer that just puts up free patterns, you can get those there. And of course, as a consumer, you can go to Ravelry for free patterns. Whereas on Etsy, you cannot sell free items. Etsy is going to take a percentage of every single sale, whether, like, I don't even know if you can list something for $0 because they will take a percentage of that. So you can't just put a free pattern on there, and you can't send patterns to other people on Etsy. The biggest thing I think as a pattern consumer that's a pro on Ravelry is the searchability. Etsy, again, is not just a pattern site. There's so many billions of things on Etsy, but on Ravelry, you can look for patterns and you can look for yarn. And so on Ravelry, there's a slew of features on that sidebar where you can filter down patterns. You can look for just a knitting pattern, just a crochet pattern in a specific weight with a specific yardage. And that just can't be beat. Ravelry has the, what is it called? They have that, I don't know. They're the only ones that I know of, and that is a definite pro for Ravelry. Now, Etsy I'm not going to leave you out here. Etsy actually does have some really significant pros when it comes to being a seller, especially in their analytics. So if you are interested in that, again, as a seller, just let me know, and I'm happy to do some more research on that and put together another video. So my last thing that I want to go through is how you can help pattern designers put more money in their pocket without actually having to spend any more money yourself. These are just some practical things you can do if you want to support your favorite designer. So imagine, or just think of a time maybe that you've been at a small business in person and you pull out your card to swipe, and maybe you've had an interaction with that shop owner before and you ask them, like, they say debit or credit, and you say, I don't know, and they said, well, debit is better for us. And that's true because the fees are different on debit transactions versus credit. So because you want to support that shop, you say, well, it doesn't matter to me. I'll do my PIN number and I'll purchase as debit. So while you can't do that online with patterns, there are some similar things you can do to make sure that when you're making purchases, it's helping the designer. So one thing that you can do, you can, whenever it's appropriate, I'm not saying change your buying habits, try to buy your patterns in together. Like if you want to buy several patterns from a designer, but you're not starting any right now, maybe wait until you can just buy 3 of them together. This really applies to Ravelry only because on Etsy, each separate pattern is its own transaction and will be the fees will be assessed separately. But on Ravelry, the fees are assessed as a whole. If you purchase one $6 pattern on Ravelry, that one $6 pattern jumps over to PayPal and the 2.9% and 30 cents fees apply. If you purchase 3 $6 patterns, that would be $18, right? Then again, you still get that 3.5% on Ravelry. But when it moves to PayPal, it's still only a 30-cent flat fee. And then of course the 2.9%. So it's just cents on the dollar for that designer. And it's not any different to your pocket, but it really does help. And like I said, only when appropriate. Don't just wait to buy patterns because I said so. Buy when you want to. But if you're ever in a scenario where you can purchase 2 together, that is going to be better for your favorite designer. At the same thing, take advantage of sales, again, on Ravelry when the designer puts them up. If you can buy multiple patterns, it really helps the designer in 2 ways. One, what I was explaining before, where a larger purchase still incurs the same flat fee on PayPal. It also helps promote the designer. So that's my third and final way you can help support your favorite designer at no cost to you. And you can do this on Etsy too. You can favorite or heart their patterns. You can favorite and heart their shop. You can talk about things that you're excited about. Sometimes when I really like a pattern and I don't even know if I'll ever make it, but I really like it, I'll favorite it on Ravelry and I'll repost it on my Instagram stories because I love it and I think it's great. And that really helps pattern designers kind of get their material out there for other people to see. So that's a completely free way. Maybe a pattern is not your style or in your budget, but you can still help for free. All right, guys, that's it. I think that's everything that I had in my brain about where your money goes when you buy on Ravelry versus Etsy. Now, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below. I'm reading every single one of them and I'm happy to respond. Again, I'm trying to be very objective and informative about these two sites. I think they're both really great for different reasons, and I use them both as a seller and as a consumer. So if you find anything in here that you find to be confusing or you're not too sure about, please let me know. I am happy to help. And of course, if you find anything that I have had an error with, tell me as well. I'm happy to correct it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you learned a little bit today. Bye.